All right, take 2,515 in seconds. What can I say? I'm sitting outside of Elmer's in Vancouver, Washington. Just had a great breakfast. It was awesome. I had eggs and hash browns and ham. Just my favorite restaurant, my favorite place for, the old-fashioned kind of thing. So Ken Sr. just be totally envious, I hope. Anyway, my purpose is threefold. One, to make a recommendation. I know, it's finally here. Drum roll, please. To make a recommendation on the painting of the church, so the board can approve, so we can proceed, assuming the board does. And secondly, to give you an update as to what I've been working on recently on the parsonage. And third, to give you an overview of where we're headed on the safety issues that the board had raised with respect to the work that I'm doing out on the east side with the masonry. So to begin with the recommendation, you will recall from the past that we had come to these conclusions leaving the last meeting together, that we would think about and pray about. The painting, we are ready to do that. We have gone through the steps of getting communications from our church community and from you. We have met with the aesthetic committee. You'll recall from my previous videos that we, in our first discussion, had kind of moved away from the two ideas of highlighting the columns, which several of you wanted, including myself, and the two-tone, which I think I'm the one who initiated that, and several wanted, but I very much wanted. We finally walked away from that, mostly because as the result of 6 principles that finally we began to follow. One, recognizing that it is a historic building and that we want to retain the flavor of that and the integrity of that, and two, that it's a building that needs to reflect the neighborhood itself, and especially on the front side, you'll recall that those houses really are not two-tone by and large. They're single family dwellings, and they give the feel of a neighborhood like that. On the back, where you have the higher level of cement, there you do have the two-tone, and that's going to naturally reflect that. And so at the end of the day, and beyond that, you really want to highlight those sacred windows. Also, it's just simply cheaper to maintain. And so the 6 principles really began to lead us, and formed in us the fact that we need to keep it fairly basic and fairly simple, and stay with neutral colors. And so that's where we landed and how we got there. Since then, we've had many discussions. We've thought it through, felt it through. I've mostly had personal discussions with every member of the board, and we are ready to make a recommendation to you. We had come down, of course, to the 2 options. One would be a lighter gray that was initially recommended by Jenna, and then a darker gray that would be the trim, also recommended by Jenna. And that was offset by another recommendation, which was that there would be it's a neutral color gray, but it's almost a taupe, if you will. It's a very nice, soft, fuller, deeper, richer color, and then with a deeper gray for the actual trim of the windows and the belly trim, etc. And that's called gauntlet gray for that. The other's called, I think it's fawn brindle, if memory serves. Anyway, that was the unanimous recommendation of the committee, with one exception. We did have a minority report. One person very strongly felt and wanted us to use the light gray with the darker trim on the building. to recommend the fondle gray, the taupe scents, and the deeper gray and the richer gray, both on the wall and on the window, and as opposed to the lighter gray. And the reasons for that are severalfold. The decision is, do we want to focus the people's attention on the glory of the building, meaning that it's a church, it's set apart, it's immediately seen as a church, which of course, obviously it always will be. I even had some neighbors, because I was conversing with several of our neighbors, who said, yeah, go with the light gray for sure, because this is a church, you want it to stand out as such. That is the Minority Report recommendation by Lorenzo specifically. He strongly felt we needed to stay with, he wanted a white church, and we certainly considered several white versions, but he wanted that setting, that sensibility of it standing out as a sacred space that glorifies God. The other option is more incarnational, and that's kind of where all of us landed. It also happens to be where the experts that we had engaged, Jenna had engaged from across the nation and even in Canada, who are in the industry, and they separately made the same recommendation, which was to stay with your neutral colors, to focus on those windows, and to blend with the community. And that was the reason. So it's more incarnational in that the church is the massive church. It's going to always look and feel like a church. It's always going to have that sense of sanctity. But by highlighting the trim with the richer and deeper taupe, and the gauntlet gray, then even deeper than that, that really focuses the attention on those sacred windows. And it blends both on the front side where you have single colors basically in most of the houses, and the back side where you have this two-tone and you have a higher base foundations on the back side. It's just a perfect blend with the community. And so that's where most of us came down. That is the recommendation we are making to you, with, again, a minority. Given there will be insufficient funds likely to replace the sacred doors at the front two entrances and then the side entrance by the parsonage, we as a committee are also going to be agreeing with and recommending we respond to the considerable input we have from several, that we highlight those doors with a bold and deep color, and that be done perhaps seasonally by Jenna to repaint them each season to match the neutral colors, but to still stand out as an inviting statement. Now, the issue of the actual foundation, if we were going to make a recommendation, we have enough consensus that I would be, meaning that, again, we have a minority report, but we have enough consensus that we should keep the foundation the same color as the trim. And the idea is that what it does is it sets a foundation visually, so the eye is cast to the upper level of the building. Whereas if you paint it the same color as the walls, the building is just too massive, and your eyes go everywhere, and it doesn't focus as much as you would if you had a trim foundation. Now, the minority report there is again from Lorenzo, and his feeling was, no, you definitely want it either the same as the wall, or you want to introduce a third coloration down below, someplace in between, that still sets your foundation, but doesn't he thinks it'll take away from the windows, actually, if you go with something, if you go with the same, rather than drawing attention to the building, it will draw it away from the building. And that was his sense of that. So I'm trying to be fair with that. We don't have to make a decision on that, because that's going to have to wait until I'm done with all of the repair on the masonry, and that's going to take a full year. Hopefully we'll be out of the east side, I think, in the next 60 days. So anyway, that's where we're at on that. I meet next week with Jonathan to go over the specific things he needs to get done before painting can start. They're just the things that were left, on the edge and unfinished, and lots of details. So I'm preparing that video with him, and I'm going to walk through it with him, but I'm also wanting him to be keenly aware of visual by visual by visual. So there's no reason he can't do the painting that simultaneously, meaning as long as he's ahead of it and he coordinates with his painter, and I don't have any problem releasing it immediately once you've approved the paint colors that we were making as a recommendation. Is going to the second issue, which has to do with the safety protocols. First of all, I want to thank the board with your concern. I want to apologize. I should have been all over that in terms of what you instructed Pastor Sean to do, and what I think he wisely did in just putting that fencing around. That's so good, and I should have been aware of that, and I apologize that I wasn't. I'm grateful for that. As it relates to the safety protocols inside the perimeter, this is where I'm thinking that it's this bush that really protects everything here from falling down behind, and that is where I'm working on the other side of this, between this egress well and this one right now. And I would be putting 2 electrical rods 8 foot into the ground on an angle here and over here on the other side of this orange cable, obviously, and then tie it around that bush so as to give a little bit more protection. I'm not really worried again about this whole section here. And we will complete everything up through that second egress well. We already have the egress wells filled, and we will finish everything between. It's already prepped, etc. We'll need to dig out this area right there, of course. And I'm not even worried about that. Where it becomes problematic, I think, is from this point on. And so where we're thinking of skipping their existing conduit on the ground is at this corner, and come straight over to the wall, and then follow this wall with a new conduit. That way we don't have to open up additionally any of this ground, because if we go to the conduit as it is, we'll have to dig in about another foot, and I really don't want to touch that second grade. Whereas if we get a new conduit and just stem off from the existing one, cut and then extend it out, we can lay it right against that foundation, which is a lot smarter. And what we're going to do. So that's what we're thinking for safety purposes. Finally, you'll recall in my previous video that about 4 weeks ago we'd done a repair on the main line. And during that, and in the correction of that, replacing the broken piece and realigning everything so that they would have a permanent connection, I had decided that while I'm at it, I might as well complete the third run that we need for the park, and the 2 small sprinkler runs for the front yard of the parsonage. And so I kind of mapped it out, and and a small, seemingly innocent project became a difficult one, but with good outcomes. Okay, the bad news is this leak is still there. It is so small, it is pathetic. I gotta eventually do something here, and I don't know what. I ain't worrying about it right now. There was a leak here that was more steady, and I think I fixed it, which is good. So anyway, that's great. What I've got now is the gravel portion done, so that whatever leaks out of here goes under a plastic out through here, and then down below the conduit that comes through here and out. And of course, this again is the conduit that is the wash away for most of the stuff. It's captured right like that. This thing here captures it, goes down there, underneath, around, and then down into the lower portion of the ditch, using a combination of gravel fill and holes in the conduit and in the container at the bottom portion of that. And so then we put it back together with the cedar box and the access box on top of it. All access from the other side of the fence through a gate.
Anyway, I'm really pleased with that. That is an engineering feat, let me tell you. I don't know how I got all that into the same space, but it's telling me it's got, I think, 11 minutes till the next two go off.
Hey, Jack. This is after that sprinkler has just finished this front yard. It covers just, as you can see there, and it goes through to capture the stuff on the other side. That's kind of what it does. The next step is going to be the picking of the colors for the church and determining exactly, for example, how we want to approach the building. But we need to ask an important question once in a while, and I think when we come to this issue, it's time to ask it again, and that is why we do what we do. And I think there are three clear things that we need to keep in view. The first of these is that whatever we do for the glory of God, acknowledging human weakness and our inability to really build or even live anything that comes close to the majesty and beauty and love of the Creator. Nevertheless, we should try with all of our heart and effort to do just that. Secondly, will it fit in with the neighborhood and be a part of the community? So that has certainly got to be one of the goals. And the third and greatest tragedy would be to create a work of art and not have a living body of Jesus Christ that both fills and moves from this space back into the city. And that's not going to happen, at least not in the near future, because God has gifted us with so many good people. And so in that sense, the building has to kind of look like us. It has to be in our skin. It has to, we incarnate the love of God